Hi guys. I want to talk to you a little bit about negotiation, specifically for creative people. And I want to talk to you about how I got interested in negotiation and some of my top tips for negotiation. So, the moment it clicked for me was when Michelle Williams was in the movie All the Money in the World. And I don't know if y'all remember this story, but Kevin Spacey, oh, there's a typo. Kevin Spacey was removed from the movie because he had allegations of inappropriate behavior. Um, we'll leave it at that. But they had to reshoot scenes in the movie because they replaced Kevin Spacey, I believe, with Christopher Plummer. And there was like an extra 2 weeks filmed of the movie. And the two stars were Michelle Williams and Mark Wahlberg. Michelle Williams came back for scale, which was about $80 a day. So she ended up making a total of about $1,000 for the 2 weeks work. Mark Wahlberg negotiated his standard rate and ended up making 1.5 million for the same 2 weeks of work. And the real kicker here is that Michelle Williams and Mark Wahlberg have the same agents, or had the same agents at the time this happened. Hopefully, Michelle Williams has since fired these agents. Now, you can definitely argue that Mark Wahlberg's is a more bankable star. He's been in a lot of movies, more movies that would be considered blockbusters than Michelle Williams, but she's nothing to sniff at. She's got Academy Award nominations. She's been in major films. She's definitely an actress people know. And even if there's a difference in what they can pull as actors, it's certainly not a 1.5 million to $1,000 difference between the two. So what clicked about this for me and why this made me realize I need to get good about negotiating is that Michelle Williams has said in interviews that it didn't even occur to her to negotiate for more money. She was just trying to be nice and helpful and get the project moving and do what needed to be done for the project. Mark Wahlberg's asked for more money, and that's part of why he got more money. So yeah, the system is unfair. It's stacked against all kinds of people in all kinds of ways. It's stacked against women, it's stacked against minorities, it's stacked against people who come from poor families and don't understand the way the system works or how to get into the system, don't have access through connections. But we could just go on and on about that, right? But one thing that each one of us can do as an individual, if we are not empowered in any one of these ways, in multiple of these ways, is ask. You're never going to get the money that you deserve, whether you're negotiating salary or you're negotiating a fee as a contractor or freelancer, if you don't ask for the money that you deserve. That is on, now, maybe it's not fair, right? The system's not fair, but where we are right now, the one thing that each of us can take control of is asking for what we deserve. So I had to learn this, and I had to consciously step out and develop these skills because as a woman and as someone who was educated in English, communication, soft skill fields, creative fields, and then I worked in writing and proofreading. When you're in these types of fields, nobody teaches you negotiation, not in the education, not out in the field. And people who work in creative fields are more and more being expected to freelance. As a freelancer, you have to negotiate your income. I am responsible for bringing in every dollar that supports me. So I had to learn these skills on my own, and I don't want all of you to have to go through that process yourself. So, right. So I had to learn these skills at the very moment that I needed them when I was doing my first big negotiation with a client. I would love to help other people, though, pick up some of these skills before they absolutely need them. So, with my first big client, I negotiated a $5,000 a month retainer from a healthcare clinic. And I was terrified the whole way through. I was nervous. I didn't sleep well. I didn't quite have panic attacks, I don't think, but I was very panicky. And I was a wreck driving over there in the car to do the negotiation. But I did it. And I negotiated the amount that I wanted. And you can do it too. If I can learn how to do this, I think anybody can learn how to do this. So I had a couple of things that really helped me. I worked with a mentor who knows negotiation and taught me how to negotiate. My mentor is named Ted Lenhart, and he still coaches people. I paid him a small fee, but more than made up for it in what I was able to negotiate. He gave me specific language to use and helped me in my negotiation. And he helped me realize that everyone is nervous when negotiating, even the people who have business degrees and who negotiate all the time. What else? Oh, so some of my big tips are try to do this communication, do the negotiation in a form of communication that is synchronous. So something where you're both talking at the same time. I love to do it in person whenever possible, but due to COVID, there's not a lot of in-person meetings happening these days. On the phone, over Zoom are all preferable to email. The problem with email is that the client can sit with you, right, and look at it and come up with all kinds of reasons in their head for why it's too much money. They can run it by other coworkers who have a cousin who also writes or draws and can do the work for much cheaper. And it's just better if you can talk it through directly at that moment. Another tip is to have a pricing structure set in your head and stick with it. So if you work for individual people, if you do writing or drawings or whatever creative work you do, if you just do it for sole proprietors or individual people who hire you out on a one-off basis, what I have been told and trained is to publish your rates. If you're working with individuals and you don't publish your rates, they often assume that you're too expensive. If you work for corporations, which I primarily do, and you don't publish your rates, they can sometimes assume that you're not a serious person. So if you ever go to my website, you'll see that my rates are not published, but privately I have a set of rates. I have an hourly rate. I have a sense of what I would charge for certain projects that I might do, but I don't publish them. When you're negotiating, you want to be the first one to say a number. This goes against what the Harvard Business School would say about negotiation, and I know this is not what everybody would agree with, but I think if you're the first one to say the number, you set the parameters in which the money conversation is happening. So maybe you say, an hourly rate of 100, and they were thinking 60. So you've got them in the right ballpark at least, and you may still have to negotiate it upwards, but if they start out at 60, you've got a long way up to go instead of starting out right where you want to be. Ask for 20% more than what you want. That gives a little cushion for the client to talk you down, and you're still comfortably in the range that you want to be in. Before you go into the negotiation, know your bottom that you will accept, know the lowest rate that you're comfortable with. So maybe, that varies based on how busy you are at the time or how much work you've had or how much you really want that client on your portfolio. But know what that is before you go in there so you have a firm boundary and you can't be talked into things in the moment of the negotiation. Another tip I like to give is shift the conversation from fees to value. So yes, you do have to say what your actual fees are, but as much as you can, instead of talking about those numbers, talk about what you give the client for what you're charging. So Talk about successes you've had with past clients, how you've improved the amount of people who came to their website, how you've improved interaction numbers on their social media, how you've helped them redefine their brand. Describe these in great details. Tell stories. Use the strengths that you have as a creative person to really sell what you can do for the client. This is where those of us as creatives can be really good at negotiating. Describe the process that you use as a creative to explain to the client how you're going to do something really amazing for them, right? I mean, don't talk about that, maybe on a bad day, you sit and stare at the wall for an hour. Don't share that part of your creative process, but maybe describe like how you research, and then you use that research to move into brainstorming, and then maybe you collaborate with somebody else, and the parts of your process that will help the client understand that there's more to it than just sitting down at a computer and vomiting out words. Another way you can shift the conversation is asking questions that elicit emotion. So I like to ask things like, what excites you about blank, or what inspires you? So if you're writing for a restaurant, there's certainly a lot of restaurants who might be trying to promote themselves right now. So you might say like, what excites you about the upcoming holiday season? Or what makes you nervous about the upcoming holiday season? What is your biggest challenge that I can help you address? Or, I might phrase this as like, what is the most stressful thing on your plate right now that I can take off of it? What can I take off your plate and help you with that would make you feel the most relief? Right? That's one that clients usually respond well to. And then a nice one just to ask clients in general is, what was your goal before COVID? What was your biggest goal before COVID hit? And what is your biggest goal now that we are in this COVID world? So questions like that will get them thinking in emotional terms. And those are conversations that those of us who are creatives have real good skills for navigating. I like to remember that it's rarely about us, any tension or weirdness that we sense in the meeting. It's real easy when you're talking about money and trying to land work. It's real easy to assume anything tense that's happening on a call or in a meeting is about you and what you've said. But more often than not, it's something else happening. A lot of offices have politics. Maybe they've had a stressful day because their supervisor at the highest level in the office was unhappy with another project. Maybe somebody is just super hungry or had a fight with their spouse. So don't assume just because there's an awkward vibe or tension in the room that it's about you and what you've said. Keep going with your game plan. Obviously, if they say something to you that indicates there's something that they want you to respond to, don't ignore it. But don't let like just an odd vibe in the room make you think you've done something. And when you're closing the negotiation, I like to, finish by reviewing what I've pitched. So I'm going to do a website for you and review the messaging of the brand or whatever you're going to do. How does that sound to you? So again, we're asking a question and you're letting the client respond, so giving them a chance to say, yes, that sounds good. Or every once in a while the client will say, yeah, but also what about this? Sometimes you forget and leave out something that they wanted you to include. So once you have agreed on the scope of work, then you can also add in something like, great, that sounds great. In my experience, projects like this take about 2 months and cost this amount of money. If that sounds right, I'll send a contract for your review tomorrow. Or sometimes the client will want to send a contract to you, and then you'll go through contract review process. But I like to get that contract signed right away, as quickly as possible. And when the contract shows up in your inbox, do what you need to get it signed. If the client does not accept the full pitch, it's always good to have alternatives. So maybe they don't want you to do a full website. You can always offer, maybe you can just redo the landing page, Or what about a couple of blog posts for this lower fee? So maybe they don't have it in their budget to pay $5,000 for copy for an entire website. How about 1,500 for 3 blog posts? Or there's always an alternative that you could pitch, right? So try to avoid a complete dead end. And even if things don't work with that client, there's always other ways to keep advancing yourself. So just try to keep having forward momentum, other projects, find people who can help you. If nothing else, expand your presence on social media or update your own website. And remember, if you're a freelancer, shamelessly self-promote yourself. That was a bit redundant, but shamelessly self-promote. So I like to put things out on LinkedIn. I put things out on my own website. And I'd say for about the first year of doing this, I felt a little bit of fear or awkwardness when I went out to promote myself. And now I don't even feel that anymore. It's just something I know I need to do in order to get the business that I use to feed myself and put a roof over my head. And so at least for me, I can't guarantee this will happen for you, but at least for me, the initial fear I had of, hey, I need work, anybody have work, it goes away. And just remember that, you can do this. This is a skill that you may feel a little bit awkward employing initially, but you can absolutely learn it and you can absolutely improve. Nobody's born knowing how to talk. Nobody's born knowing how to walk. We learn how to do these things one step at a time. So I like to, before I negotiate, I like to remember past times I've been successful, things I've done that I excelled at, a job that I landed that I maybe didn't expect to get. We all have things that we've been successful with in the past. I will sing in the car or just alone by myself at home the week before I negotiate. What that does is 2 things. It activates your vagus nerve, which takes you from your sympathetic nervous system, which is where we feel that fight or flight, that nervous response, and puts you into the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms you down. So it will help you relax. And it also helps exercise the diaphragm. And a strong diaphragm and being able to project from your diaphragm is going to make you sound more confident in your meetings. Sometimes I'll wear a power outfit, especially if it's an in-person meeting, and I might plan that out even a week before. I might get my nails done. I normally do my nails myself, and they're terrible today, but I might actually go to a salon and have them professionally done if I'm going to be pitching a big client. Breathing exercises are great for the same reasons as singing in the car, and there's all kinds that you can find online. It's just a matter of finding the ones that you prefer and that feel good to you. And I like to remember that everyone in the negotiation is nervous. I'm not the only nervous one. And another thing that helps propel me through it is knowing that it feels great when you're successful, when you actually get the money that you want and you've successfully negotiated, and that paycheck comes in and you've earned your own money, and not only earned it, but you brought it in and found it and negotiated it yourself. So I hope those tips are helpful, and I am happy to answer any questions in the comment section, or feel free to email me as well. Thanks, guys.